I hereby commend you. Be strong and courageous.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.
What's going on? A lot going on. First of all, Happy New Year. We are in a new year and we are facing some of the challenges coming from past many years. Joining me today in my podcast, very special guest, Madam Talia Klein Leighton. She's President Canadian Women Against Antisemitism. And another special guest who happened to be in our studio several times before, Rishab Saraswat. Rishab ji represent Kohna, very vibrant organization, working for Hindu rights, doing advocacy for the community, and you both are very special guests in our Tag TV's podcast today. I'm very grateful that you guys are investing some time in our today's conversation. I would like to start from a very important happening last year, what we saw through social media, through news. Both of you served very well in terms of connecting Hindus and Jews, in terms of denouncing misunderstanding about the terminology Swastika and Hakenkreuz. Very sensitive issue. And I understand that these two terminologies are very complicated, very sensitive, and in terms of telling our masses about their true meanings, you both did well. Thank you for doing that.
Well,
Please.
and we won, right?
Yes.
We
Tell
won.
us the story.
The
Walk through our views about what happened.
Well, so what happened was the reason that it actually came to the foreground is because the government introduced a bill called Bill C9, the Combating Hate Bill. And in it, they referred to the Nazi Hakenkreuz, parentheses, swastika, and also known as swastika. And it was actually a wonderful opportunity for both of our communities to bring this to the government and say, listen, the swastika is an ancient symbol used by Hinduism, by a few other cultures as well. And I mean, certainly in my travels in India, I saw it everywhere, and I see it adorning the temples, and it's beautiful. And so we were able to both write depositions to the government saying we need to stop using the term swastika in reference to the Nazi Hakenkreuz, which means hooked cross, because it does such a disservice to the Hindu community. And the motion that was put forward by our community, by your community, by many others, certainly by everyone at ALCA, was unanimously passed by the Justice Committee.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so it was unanimous. And what I really appreciate is that we finally had an opportunity to bring it forward because of this bill, and because probably they didn't even think about it. They were just like, oh yeah, the swastika, right? And now we had an opportunity, and we seized it, and it was extraordinary, and we saw a lot of allyship come through with that. And I mean, I'm the grandchild of Holocaust survivors. My husband is the son of Holocaust survivors, and I mean, I've grown up always thinking about the swastika. So for me, this was also an opportunity to change and to learn and to really be specific about my language choices. And since then, I have never used the term swastika to refer to anything to do with anything Nazi. I will always use the term Hakenkreuz. So I appreciate having the opportunity to change myself and to learn. So here we are, another step forward for cultural understanding.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
You said you seized the opportunity.
Yeah.
Rishabji, so how would you like to take her opinion in terms of what she used the good term, allyship?
Nothing is more beautiful than a Jew person speaking for Hindu cause and a Hindu person speaking for Jewish cause. And that's what allyship actually means. And that's what we saw in the Bill C-9 itself. The opposition came on the camera or on the record through a Jewish MP. They actually moved the motion. And Talia gave the introduction. It sounded like a cakewalk, and it was at the end a cakewalk, but it took a lot of effort to reach there. From the beginning, when it was introduced, from September onwards, Kona has been working on it. Tahirji, you were one of the co-signees. We did more than 75 Hindu organizations came together to sign and put a joint letter. More than 9,000 emails were sent through the Hindu community members through our email campaign. Reached out to many MPs. All those things mattered, and change happened. What happened was, as Talia was explaining, Hakenkreuz, also known as swastika, got changed to Hakenkreuz, also known as Nazi swastika. And even after that, when we were doing the deputations, along with us, many other Hindu organizations, I think closely together, 4 or 5 Hindu organizations did the deputations. But what moved the needle was when they saw that almost all the Jewish organizations supported the call of, I would like to name the person who did one of the most beautiful deputations there from Alliance of Canadians Against Hindu Antisemitism. Mark Sandler wrote a really good review about Bill C-9 and legal critique of it, and his critique about the Hakenkreuz was actually landmark, and that's where Kona and another organization named Kohi worked together to bring them on the board. And that's where and we have been doing this allyship building for long. Last year, in similar situation, B'nai B'rith did a petition, and they used the term swastika, and we reached out to them, and Rishab actually changed that. He took a principled stand that he learnt about it, and he did change it. That was another milestone that happened. So Mark Sandler, Rishab, and after that we saw from CIJA, CWAA, Talia's in her own deputation, and other many Secure Canada, also AVI, and many other Jewish organizations. I think 7 or 8 of Jewish organizations, all of them unanimously either said that out and open that Hakenkreuz should be the terminology used, no swastika, or they said that they support Mark Sandler's deputation.
Actually, it was more than that. It was 34 or 37 Jewish organizations actually signed on to Mark Sandler's deputation, including CWA, even though we also did our own. But he had a huge groundswell of support for this issue.
And you see that, if you look at the landscape of the lawmakers and the media, they still are not changing. You see, recently, just last week, CTV did another usage, but I think they will now, when the victims of the anti-Semitism itself are denying the use of it. Why are you hell-bent of it, including Honorable Jagmeet Singh, coming from a dharmic family? He very well knows what swastika means. He using it. Our former Prime Minister has used it multiple times, and we have flagged it.
Actually misusing.
Yeah, misused it. And now we have, after the Jewish community itself coming together and flagging it, I think we see the clear change, and 2026 will be year when this narrative should be done and dusted, and there is no confusion. Yeah. There is no big confusion, or there is a big sensitivity around it. It's just that one historical researcher decided to use a wrong terminology, and then NYT did it, and after that you see a lot of other organizations started to do it. So it's a historical mistake which was deliberate in the time, and it was the same time. 1933 was the time when this change happened, and 1935 was the time when Swastika, another town in Canada, and I wrote an article about it, that Swastika town in Canada, in Ontario, they wanted to change the name to Winston after Churchill. And the whole town, they didn't have any religious connotations with swastika. They did not let it change. They put up another sign up there. They put up the swastika sign, another sign. Another sign said, "To hell with the Hitler. We came with that first." So the people who didn't even have a daily living connection with that, they did not let it go and change because somebody decided we will start calling hooked cross to a swastika today because this was the time we want to put any of the criminal thing on any indigenous culture rather than us. And why I bring indigenous cultures as well, because in the North America there are indigenous cultures who have been using swastika and they gave up in 1940s by the pressure of the colonizers that you have to give up, and they gave up. And now when we are talking about truth and reconciliation, this is the truth and reconciliation in the action where we are working together and correcting the historical mistakes. So I think it's a really landmark in that in the federal bill it has been changed, and Jewish Hindu Alliance in Canada has shown a path forward. All across the Anglo-Saxon countries this model should be emulated, and all the Jewish and Hindu communities need to come together. It's a need of the time, and allyship, as Talia mentioned, is the key word here. And allyship means that we look at each other's grievances, settle that first, and move together with this combined force, because we multiply each other's force together.
Rishab and Talia, you both spoke about solidarity with each other, Hindus and Jews. Let me induct myself into this conversation. Halima and I founded a Muslim Committee Against Anti-Semitism in 2012. So I call myself, I'm a Hindu born in Muslim faith. Islam is a faith club, Hindu is my civilization. So from progressive Muslims, I extend my solidarity to our Hindu brothers and sisters, to our Jews brothers and sisters. And how can we work together in 2026 in order to counter hate against Hindus, against Jews, against progressive Muslims? Please.
It's a very complicated question that you're asking, but the fact that people like you and Helena and Raheel Raza and people like that are willing to stand up it is so important.
Imam
Tawhidi, an extraordinary human being. It's so important that you're willing to stand up because, we're very good in our society of creating these silos, right? The Muslims are over here, the Hindus are over here, the Jews are over here, and that's how we foment a lot of discrimination and a lot of stereotypes. So, and we all run the risk of falling into these silos. And being able to come together and talk to each other, with the wave of anti-Semitism that is coming from the left and also from the Islamists in Canada.
Absolutely.
It would be very easy for me to create an us and them, right? The Muslims are over there and I'm over here, and there's no, and it frightens me because I don't want my children growing up like that. I don't want my children growing up thinking that, all Muslims hate the Jews. So it's so important to have these conversations, to find our allies, to be able to tell our communities, the haters, the Islamists, and I'm very careful about my terminology. I will never refer to the Muslims. Right? Because I know,
that's a clear distinction between Muslims and Islamists.
Absolutely. Just like Hakenkreuz and Swastika, it's very important to get our terminology right. And I don't want my children growing up thinking that it's an us and them, that the Muslims are over here and the Jews are over here, because it's not true, right? Because we do have allies. What troubles me is because of the power of them at the moment of the Islamists and how strong their lobby is and how strong their ethos in our culture is, that it's so difficult for people like you and for people like Raheel, because you paint a target on your back, right? I feel like it is, and again, I'm making assumptions, but I feel like it's so much more difficult for you than it is for me, right? I mean, of course I'm going to stand up for my people, right?
Absolutely.
But for people in the Muslim community to stand up for the Jews, given what's going on with the Islamists, it's so much more difficult. You really do paint a target on your back. I mean, I see what Raheel goes through. I see what the Imam goes through. But I wish that you could also understand just how meaningful it is for me, because it's not just the fact that, yes, we have allies. It's the fact that I can teach my children. It's not everyone, right?
Yes.
Not everyone is out to get us, right? It's the Islamists. It's that left-wing crazy ethos, and it's the weak-minded, majority, the silent majority that doesn't have the guts to stand up. Those are the people we're concerned about. It's not this monolithic silo of the Muslims.
But I would like to add one thing here. It's a very encouraging element. When we started our activism for our Muslim side, for our actually Jews brothers and sisters, Middle Eastern governments were not on our side. But now we see UAE, for instance.
The UAE?
Bahrain, we see, for instance.
Bahrain, yeah.
Even Saudi Arabia is changing a little bit.
Yeah.
It would take time. We understand it. But I was speaking to a few of my Emirati friends yesterday, and I was so encouraged to hear from them. They said in each and every sentence, we were in a Zoom meeting, God bless Israel. I was hearing this from Emiratis. And Rishab ji, one of my Saudi friend was also on that Zoom meeting. He said, God bless India. So this is the kind of worldwide change I can see.
And that's how we win, right? But like, keep in mind, when Iran was bombing Israel, right, that night of 200 and some odd missiles into Israel, it was Saudi Arabia, it was Kuwait, right, it was Jordan that were shooting down some of those missiles. So
some hope.
There's some hope. There's definitely some hope.
That happened in 2025.
Yeah.
And now we are in 2026. Right in the first week of January, I was talking to Emiratis and Saudis. They gave me hope. So how would you see this hope?
Talia very eloquently actually mentioned it, that how, and I would add that Muslims are the biggest victims of extremism and Islamism. So it's but natural that more Muslims should come forward.
Absolutely.
And work with talking about anti-Semitism and Hinduphobia. And it's true that most of the extremist and loudest voices actually capture the structures and the mics to amplify their hateful agendas. But there is a hope in the world with the people who are working for peace. And it's unfortunate that whoever works in the for the peace gets the most attacks by a lot of common actors. And that's where we know that our problems are similar, our attacks, the mechanism of attacks are similar, and sometimes even the actors are the same. So why not combine the forces? And it is very disheartening for me to see the reports of I care about Canadian Jews, I care about Hindu Canadians, because that's our area of work here as a Kona working. So when I see that reports of Jews finally trying to leave Canada and go to Israel, that kind of things are happening, I would like to say that there are 1 million Hindus now in Canada, and there should not be whatever assurance we can give as an ally, as a kind of a distant family members, that we are sticking with you and we are there with you, even though the world feels like against you and it feels like it's very darkest time, but still there is hope.
Rishab, you're going to make me cry.
No, we are
But
together.
I mean every
We
word
are
of it.
together.
We mean because we saw that solidarity of Hindus against, our community standing against us when the world was against us. And that's how now our responsibility to stand with you.
I think it's so important that we show up for each other.
Yeah.
It's the Jews, we're in the crosshairs right now. And that's not always the case, right? And it's true that every Jewish family, I will tell you right now, is walking around with a short list. We're all walking. And my husband and I refine our short list every now and again of places where we would run to, whether it's Israel, Singapore, Costa Rica, Argentina, Aruba. We're working on and refining that short list, right? And how much portable wealth, right? What can we take with us? Knowing that we have 1 million family members, I mean, it's going to make me cry. It's unbelievable. I don't think, sometimes it's so easy to get so bogged down in the hate, and it's like this horrible game of whack-a-mole that we're constantly playing, right? It's like an anti-Semitic incident at that school. It's a shooting at that school. It's a professor at whatever university teaching hatred and anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, and it's this constant, or the doctors getting doxxed. It's this constant game of whack-a-mole. But sometimes you lose sight of the fact that it's not everyone, and it's not. Sometimes you walk downtown and I feel so nervous that everybody I'm walking past, especially when I'm walking through TMU, is somehow a Jew hater, and I tighten up and I hold a little closer, and it's wonderful to take a moment to breathe, and certainly with you two, to know that that's not the case, that there are really 1 million brothers and sisters out there, cousins out there. And also, the one thing I keep pounding on the desk about is we need that silent majority to stand up and to show up for us. But just like it's so appreciated when you stand up for us, that's why it's so important for us to show up as well. Whether it's at the Air India this bombing memorial, like
40th anniversary.
40th anniversary. It was so important for us to show up and to stand shoulder to shoulder because you're our brothers and sisters, and whether it's my family being attacked, your family being attacked, we're all in this together.
It is principled, but it is also shared experience also, right. Talia. Why we Hindu communities able to relate with this experience is because historically we have gone through this.
Right.
In Bangladesh right now, since 2024 to now, more than 15 Hindus have been killed. More than 25 reported, sexual assaults of Hindu, right. and then killing. But that's just a small number. Just for 40 years back, more than 20,000 Hindu women were mass raped by Pakistani army, and 3 million Hindus were killed. Yeah. And then I think similar number has been crossed the border since then through India and continuously. So this story of constant fleeing away from your home, it's not new. So from Sindh, there are a lot of Sindhi Hindus you will meet in Canada. They don't have their motherland. They left that. From the northwest provinces to Punjab to Bengal, and not only that, from Idi Amin's time, Hindus were just kicked out in one day. And so we know this pain, and that's why, for people who know the historical pain and trauma, and even in the Holocaust there was Jews, but there were also Roma people who were similarly, went through the same trauma. So this intergenerational trauma of displacement of Kashmiri Hindus, of Bengali Hindus, of Sindhi Hindus and Jews, these are the stories we need to tell each other's community members, to not to actually just cry about the problem, but also to learn from each other's the resilience, the spirit to stay alive, to be, even after all that, one of the most successful communities wherever they go, most industrious and most contributing community members. And I'm not talking from the aspect of the model minority or such. These are the numbers speak for themselves, that what are the incarceration rates of Hindus and Jews and all that. So we are talking about ordinary community members, not about the geopolitical things or all that. So they don't deserve this. The Jewish students in the university, they don't deserve the hate. Hindu community students in the school, they deserve all the love for their resilience and for their contribution, not being cancelled and start thinking about where I need to go after, so because what is the end of it?
Hate has no end. And I would like to add one idea here. In the month of October last year, in 2025, there was some event in North York, and Pakistani Baloch actually organized that. And in that event, there were goods and Iranians, and it was a gathering of about 300 people. When my turn came to speak to the audience, and I talked about Islamist terrorism against Baloch, against Kurd, against Iranians, they all were supportive of Israel. And then they were gathered there to talk about their issues. But it was a month of October, and we remember 7th October's barbarism by Hamas, Islamists. And one Pakistani Baloch guy stood, and he had a one candle. He said, in solidarity with Israel. And then many people asked me, Tahir, you are a friend of Israel, you are a friend of Jewish brothers and sisters, how could we connect with them? So 300 people were in that room.
Mm-hmm. You know, I wanted to build a little bit on what Rishab was saying, because I think we're also brothers and sisters on the other side of the coin. You know, we talk about our shared resilience, we talk about our shared, I don't like the word victimhood, but you know what I mean, targeting, and the death and the, but what we also share, and you know, I told you, I went to India last February. India and Israel are very similar places, because I felt this absolute freedom in India. You see people in full hijab, you see people in saris, you see people with, you know, in dressed in any faith, right? I had no problem with my Magen David. I have no problem with that. You know, I have the flag of Israel. None of that. And we were perfectly safe. What I didn't see in India were people with their heads wrapped in keffiyehs, yelling and screaming at everybody.
Yeah.
I felt incredibly safe. You know, I felt very comfortable, and it's the same in Israel. I mean, you can walk around in a hijab, you can walk around in a sari, you can walk around, you know, in a bikini with your nose pierced. Like, you can, all of this, you can be whoever you want to be. You can, my daughter has blue hair. She can freely walk around in Israel. She can freely walk around in India.
But sadly, and not in Jewish neighborhood in Toronto.
Well, we live in a very Jewish neighborhood, but this is, and what I find a bit disappointing is that this is what Canada is supposed to be as well. Yeah. And certainly when I immigrated to Canada in the early 70s, this is what it was. Canada was this. We talked about the tapestry, and we talked about, but there was a just a general understanding that we accept everybody's culture and religion, you know, as long as, you know, we recognize that we're in a democratic, free society. And I feel like we've lost some of that along the way. And now, you know, there are parts of Toronto where I don't feel safe.
Can we have
downtown? I don't feel safe.
Can we have our countries really safe for all of us?
Well, Israel does it. India does it, right? I mean, so.
But we have to denounce hate here anyway.
Missiles, right, that rain down on Israel. But I'm saying, in terms of like this freedom of religion, you know, absolute reliance on democracy, on freedom of speech, on freedom to self-actualize and be autonomous within reason, right? You know, your rights end where my rights end, where your nose begins, et cetera, et cetera. All of that, can we do it? I mean, it's been done. Israel does it. India does it. Canada did it.
We did it. Yes,
Canada
I remember those days.
Somewhere along the way, we lost our sense of this democratic rule of law, the, you know, equality under the law. We've got this two-tiered policing system, multi-tiered policing system, where, you know, not every law is being enforced as it ought to be. Not every community is receiving the same consideration. We've lost our way. Canada's lost its way. Can we get it back? I certainly hope so, and I think it's worth trying.
We have to work together to get it back the way it was.
Yes.
Rishab ji, what are the plans of Kohna for 2026 as we are talking about that great achievement you both communities did that in 2025?
Yeah, that was one of the achievement, and after along with that we also got two city councils to recognize about Hinduphobia. There is a long road to cross there, and that's where Jewish community and Hindu communities can work together to recognize Hinduphobia more. The reason is the unprecedented anti-Semitism and Hinduphobia you see in 2025-24 has never been seen like that. California in 2024, when they did the tally, they found out that after anti-Semitism, Hinduphobia is the most reported hate incidents and hate crimes. Similar situation, if somebody does the systematic study here, that can happen. Unfortunately, our appeals to reach out to all the levels of government to get these data done, there is no willingness to actually do. So we have to do it ourselves. So at some level, we have to do these studies to actually put these date number in this actual thing which is happening. Everybody can realize it, but into the solid numbers we see that, and also recognize that in Hinduphobia at different levels of the government. That is the number one focus. But also here, while it ended with these wins, there are many other wins also. I don't want to go too much into details, but also started on this somber note of what is happening in Bangladesh with Hindus. Since last year, we have been raising voice about it. MP Melissa Lensman, another example of Jewish-Hindu allyship, she stood up in the parliament and spoke about Bangladeshi Hindu trauma. And it's sad that why only Jewish and Hindu community members are speaking about each other's problems. What are other MPs and other people doing right now? Why can't they see this very real problem which is unfolding right in front of their eyes, where supposedly Nobel Peace Prize winner president of Bangladesh is blind to so many Hindus, like Hindus getting burnt alive, and that kind of brutal rapes and all those
and
things.
Then they post their videos online
on telegrams and everything.
Proud of themselves.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
It's
horrifying.
horrifying. Weaponizing of rape as a tool for oppression.
On October 7th.
Yeah.
Saw it on October 7th.
Unbelievable.
It's historic. It's not a new phenomenon. It has been happening for 700 years now. Hindu history is full of those episodes, but seeing it now in the places where were very much Hindu. In 1947, there were 30% Hindu population to now falling below 10%. How does this happen? That kind of a genocide, slow genocide happening in Bangladesh, and nobody speaking about it. So that's where Canada should be speaking about that. If we are actually proposers of, if we claim to be champions of equality, like it's not true on the ground, as Talia just explained it. There is a tiers, there is a visible hierarchy whose problems is bigger, from the budget allocations of the hate crimes to the hate reporting incidents to everything. And there are some people's trauma which is not even registered, not even acknowledged, and even laughed off about.
Yes.
Let's look at the Toronto District School Board, just to take that as an example,
100%.
right? The Toronto District School Board has anti-black racism, obviously, has a strategy for anti-black racism, obviously. Anti-LGBTQ discrimination makes sense. Islamophobia makes sense. Anti-Semitism makes sense. Anti-Arab racism makes sense. Anti-Asian racism makes sense. There's no anti-Hindu racism, right? But there is anti-Palestinian racism, which is a little cuckoo bananas when you think that Palestinian is a political entity and a national entity, and not actually a religion or a race or any of those protected classes in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, right? So I don't know whether that's the new thing. We're now going to grant every nationality its own racism, but there's no anti-Hindu racism. There's no strategy for anti-Hindu racism. Like, do they assume that even though, the anti-Palestinian racism would fit very easily in the anti-Arab strategy and in the Islamophobic strategy, do they assume that Asia is one big monolith, that somehow the racism that's faced by Hindu students is the same as that faced by Korean students, Chinese students, etc., right?
No, Hindus face racism because of their religion, in fact.
So
that's the problem.
That's just, I think, a really keen example, like a snapshot example of just how
bizarre.
Well, but also just how erased the racism against Hindu people is, just how it doesn't even flit on the radar of the biggest school board in Canada, right? And the reason, look, we need to unify our advocacy, because unless we unify our advocacy, the advocacy on the other side is this massive machine, and they are well organized. And this is how you have things like anti-Palestinian racism ending up at the TDSB, even though it's not a racism. I mean, look, I don't want any kids being discriminated against, whether they're being discriminated against because they're Palestinian or because they're Jewish or because they're Hindu. I don't want any kids facing hate or or racism of any kind. But we can't start having anti-Russian racism and we have to draw a line. And the Charter of Rights and Freedoms is where I draw the line. Be that as it may, and I do know that nationality and ethnic origin is in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, but we can't be separating out every single political entity. Now, so we need to unify our advocacy because they are winning, and this. And I mean, I'm going to put the name on it. This advocacy, this lobby machine that is sponsored by Iran, sponsored by the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yes.
Is so much
and
better
sponsored
organized.
by leftists now.
Right.
This is a new strong entity.
Of course, because they have done such a good job of unifying their message, of lobbying the left wing, which is how you have all these people who believe in freedom and liberty and saying hands off Venezuela and hands off the IRG. I mean, it's cuckoo bananas, bongo. Like, it doesn't make any sense at all. The left wing has completely lost its way, but that's because this lobby machine has so successfully
and very strong
gotten into the school boards, into the universities, into the unions, into the political parties. I mean, the NDP is lost completely. That unless we unify our advocacy, then we will lose. We will lose this, and we are losing, and we will lose Canada. And all of us who came to Canada, I mean, I'm an immigrant, and I came to Canada with my family because of the democracy, because of the freedom, because of the beauty, because of the maple syrup, the beauty, the mountains, the forests, but just that acceptance of that this is a better life for everybody. And we left the things behind in the country we came from, the things that made the country not that, right? Not democratic, not beautiful, not acceptable, not accepting of our religions and our wanting to be able to live with our neighbors no matter who they are and where they came from. We left that behind, and we didn't bring it with us, right? And we didn't bring that divisiveness with us and the hatred with us. We left it behind. And I would love it if that was what was the immigration of today, right? If it wasn't this attempt to get a lobby into Canada and to, I don't know.
But
I'm gonna paint too big a picture.
No, you are right. But Talia, what Rishab said, what you said, we need to work together in order to counter this behavior, what we face today. But the issue is, we came here for democracy, to cherish democracy. But now the same democracy is being used by radical groups.
Yes.
And we have seen our Prime Minister Mark Carney was sort of ideologically forced by those groups to stand against Israel.
Yeah.
We have noticed this recently.
Yeah.
So what Rishab said, for instance, he said that all those government organizations, the government institutions, why don't they recognize? But as you said, it is actually our duty to become powerful until we don't show our support and strength in front of these political parties. We would not be able to achieve anything. What would you say, both of you?
I would just add zoom out a little bit from politics to where the beginning of this is, because Talia mentioned about the TDSB, and TDSB's activism is actually reflection of the academic narratives, and where the academic narratives, if the specific cases are also important, if you have been for a 1 second on Twitter in 2025, nobody can deny, nobody can stay away from the vile anti-Indian and anti-Hindu hate you have seen. It's unimaginable how it has been. And it has had real life impacts of it. There have been students who have been shot dead, like just 2 days back. There has been person who has been actually stabbed to death. No, none of those cases were even looked upon from the angle of the racial. If you change the race and religion and the culture of those person, you will see immediate international attention. And that is academic Hinduphobia. It's the academic narratives that if you want to talk about Hinduphobia, then you have to talk in the terms of anti-South Asian hate. Even if you are talking just anti-South Asian hate, in 2023 to 2024 alone, government's own data, government agencies' own data tells more than 3,000 times increase of anti-South Asian hate. And even after that, if you want to bring anti-South Asian hate into the picture, it is never going to be anti-Indian hate. Why? Because then they will say, oh, it was a different context in terms of the Palestine, but it is not the same in terms of India, because the establishment, imperial establishment itself is any anti-indigenous culture. If you want to talk about them, you have to talk in terms of South Asia. That means you include Pakistan and Bangladesh. That's what it is. But when people are hating Indians, they are assuming if there is somebody is Pakistani, the assumption is that you are a Hindu. And then they will say that, oh, if you are Pakistani, oh, you are all same. So, I mean, hate doesn't have any,
border.
Because, yeah, there is no border. And while we are talking about the hate from the left side, which is true, which is more academic in tone, we are forgetting there is a really, really real danger of neo-Nazi rise in Canada. CBC did a really good report about the Second Sons Canada, how they are actually talking about Hitler's was right and all those things, and real trainings, armed training of the people to take on the racialized individual, to take on the Jews. Those are the very real dangers. While left does it through their argument and then intellectual combining, these guys are the real danger who's gonna do it. So you see a really real example of shoehorn theory when it comes to anti-Semitism and Hinduphobia.
Well, there's always that red-brown, right?
Yeah.
When you have the red and the brown, and they meet in the middle.
Yeah.
Right. So you have that left wing and the right, with the left being the red, obviously, and the brown being the brown shirts of the neo-Nazis, and they meet in the middle, and they meet on anti-Semitism and anti-Hindu and anti-Indian and anti-Hindu racism. That's where they meet, and they find common ground, and which doesn't make any sense at all. But that's how we have. I get a lot of hate on the internet whenever we post anything on Facebook, or on which we do habitually, and we get a lot of hate. And we get a lot of neo-Nazi language, not necessarily from neo-Nazis, but from these lefties, who say, Hitler should have finished the job, and they're not neo-Nazis, they're the lefties, but they're meeting here at the bottom of this pit, this red-brown alliance, let's call it. It is creating, let's say, a common ground of hate. And it is very, it's very troubling. It's very troubling, and things like what happened on Bondi Beach. We talked a lot about the multi-tier policing and things that happen like on Bondi Beach, and we, we're so scared here in Canada. Our Jewish community is so scared. The amount of money that our community is spending on security would blow your mind. The millions of dollars that go to security, because we are so terrified about something like what happened on Bondi Beach happening in Canada, and we keep saying it's coming, and we keep telling the police, we tell the police chief it's coming, because of this language, because of this red-brown alliance, it's coming, and we've seen the violence also against your community, and until law enforcement and until all of us allies get our act, we are such crosshairs, and this threat remains real and present, that until we can change the law enforcement's commitment, and I mean, and look,
That is a legislation required.
100%.
Tough
And,
legislation required.
Yes and no. They need to actually enforce the laws that
They are
exist.
not
There are
gonna.
plenty
Also-
of laws that
also.
exist that they are not enforcing. And I know there was an article in the National Post today about
I saw
saying,
that.
like,
Yeah.
who's really at fault here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it there? And they're pointing the finger at the judiciary, and they're pointing the finger at the Solicitor General, who's pointing the finger at the police chief, who's pointing the finger at the rank and file, who's pointing. Everybody's pointing a finger. Who then points the finger at the province. So everybody's and then they point the finger at the feds and say we need legislation. The thing is, there are laws on the books that could be being enforced right now that are absolutely not being enforced.
Yeah.
And what scares us so much is that we know, and it's horrifying, that until something like what happened at Bondi Beach happens in Canada, things are not going to change.
Very sad, and I'm afraid. I don't want
Right.
to see any bad thing happening here. If
None of us do.
it does, I'm so afraid to say this. Things won't change even after that. I mean, this is so sad. We are so.
Yeah, and at which point then the Jewish community leaves. Then we leave.
I feel so sorry.
Yeah.
Both of you.
But this is our,
Let
this is, Bondi Beach, what happened in Australia should be that cautionary tale.
Yeah,
And
wake up call.
And we said that. We went on the CBC, we said it. We said, this is your wake up call.
Yeah.
And unless you start enforcing the law, arresting those people who are marauding around Bathurst and Shepherd and terrorizing the Jewish
Unbelievable.
community there, until you start making arrests, right?
Let me give a slight positive twist to it,
Please, please.
it's
Great.
because we are talking about problem, and there have been definitely few wins, and there are
Yeah.
challenges are definitely there. Let me give an example of the police not looking at our problems in a way. That you talked about security and we talked about TDSB. It's first of all coming from the academic Hinduphobia. The first Trojan horse of Hinduphobia we saw from the school boards was through DEI. So I agree. We agree on the leftist being hijacked by academic Hinduphobia there. So through DEI we saw the caste legislations. Our so many years got wasted into fighting, into proving that we are not that bad. Will believe us, guys. You need to give us protection. Now we see the reality. What is happening is that more than 30 Hindu temples gets attacked in 2-3 years.
Yeah,
The devotees get attacked inside the temples,
my God.
and then police asking the priests and everybody that you are on your own, or if you want our protection, this is the bill: $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. Pandit Yudhishthir Dhanraj actually was able to come out of it. So that security thing is coming to Hindus as well now, but you see a little slight change there in the attitude from the previous government to now. Why that happened? Because at the time we run a campaign of increasing the voting percentages of Hindus. We, along with many other Hindu organizations, worked on it from 20% to close to 60 to 70, 80% in some of the constituency, even more. And you saw some of the results were very close.
Yes.
And you did a really thorough report about it, how
Yeah.
Hindus landed a slap where it needed to be landed.
Yes.
And that actually was able to slight change in the policies.
Yeah.
You see the
But
movement.
very slight so far.
Slight changes.
Yes.
There is a race. You saw a race between conservatives and liberals to do something about the hate. And now at least something about Bill C9 is happening. That the bubble zone protections are increasing everywhere. So things are moving. I know the picture looks oblique, and it's incidents in like Bondi Beach or Pulwama
Oh my God.
or Bangladesh. Everything scares Jewish and Hindus. It does scare us that it can happen here because the environment is same, rhetoric is same, actors using the same languages, and then the wrong kind of people are getting protection and the political patronages. But advocacy is the way.
Yeah.
We have to keep advocating for our rights. And I also want to appeal to the listeners that just listening to these conversations is not enough. You need to make the strength of Tahir Gora ji's hand stronger. You need to support them. Donate to Tag TV, donate to CWAA, donate to Kohna, so that we can do these works more effectively. We can work this because we are not meeting the challenges because of this mismatch in the scale in the infrastructure. And until and unless we put our money where our mouth is, we will just keep thinking about leaving our land. And this is not a kind of mindset you need to give to your second generation. They need to live in a secured environment, and we will do anything. What kind of parents we are if we don't do everything we can to actually support our communities? And that's where this is. And I have a firm belief that if we fight, even if Talia, few people decide to leave, there will be still few people who will be staying here.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe that we need to stay and fight the good fight.
Yeah,
Of course.
So
and I believe that
we'll be the last ones leaving.
I will
if
be.
we have to
I will
leave.
say that. How long will we? My name is Saraswat. We know the Kashmiri Hindu history. 7 genocides happened, and we kept running from pillar to post, from the Sahyadri mountains to here and there. I don't want to fly. Of course, if those decisions need to be voluntary, where you want to live in the global village, as you say, Tahirji, not based on where you're feeling insecure by the wrong narrative. So we fight narrative by putting the right narrative, because we are at the right. We are speaking from the truth, and we are speaking about contributing. We are speaking about the freedom. We are speaking about equality and nurturing each other and having good times with each other, and that should be allowed in any sane country.
How would you like to conclude our today's discussion?
I think not just donating money and vote. I mean, the voting thing is fantastic, but we need to show up for each other, and we've seen some beautiful examples of that. Last week we showed up we were both at the Salman Sima's Iranian. We were basically egging on what's going on, the protests in Iran, and we all showed up. And we showed up with our Venezuelan allies, with our Cuban allies, with our Hindu allies, our Indian allies, our Pakistani, our Muslim allies, and our Jewish allies. We were all there. We all showed up.
Yeah.
The other thing we showed up at is we had a symposium in Ottawa a little while back to talk about, and it was a bipartisan, multi-organization forum to talk about the Muslim Brotherhood, and we were there with our Hindu allies, our Jewish allies, our Christian allies, Muslim, Venezuelan, Cuban, etc., Iranian allies. I mean, they're another set of allies that are so important.
Yeah.
In this fight.
Yazidis are there.
Yazidi,
Balochs are there.
Baloch, Kurds.
Right. I
Kurds
mean,
are
look
there.
at this. We're sitting here. And the other thing is we also have to show up for our Christian allies.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because,
Absolutely.
with the churches that have been burnt across Canada and nobody's talking about
Very
it.
sad.
Yeah.
Right? We also need to show up for our Indigenous allies.
Yes.
100%.
Right? Like, we have Janice Laforme on our team,
Yes.
and we have, allies who stand up for the Jews, because we both share this indigeneity,
Yes.
this sense of indigeneity and sense of connection to our land. So if we show up for all of our allies, then we have a much better chance of them showing up for us.
100%.
And we need our Christian allies, we need our Indigenous allies, our Iranian allies, we need all of us to be showing up together, because that's how we win.
Good strategy for 2026, I must
Absolutely.
say. So, finally, brief comments in terms of concluding our conversation today.
I'm thankful for the Jewish community for standing by Hindu community, and reciprocation will continue to happen, and this is just the beginning of a long-term allyship, and Canada is showing the way of how Hindu-Jewish allyships should practically work and function, and I wish this will happen all across Anglo-Saxon countries, in India and everywhere.
Wonderful. And your final remarks.
I'm feeling a lot more optimistic this year than I was last year. With our hostages back, we can actually breathe now. We can breathe, and we can look toward rebuilding and growth. And with the allyship, with what I said and all of these people who are showing up for each other, I'm feeling a lot more optimistic about Canada, about my community, about really just the my own life, right? I mean, I've met so many extraordinary people on this journey. I started out just in this desperate need to fight the hate, and what I've actually found is just so much love and so much beauty and so much cultural growth that I would have never known. I would never have met you. I would never have met Rishab. I would never have met Rushi. I mean, what an extraordinary human being. I would never have met Raheel, right? I would never have met Janice and Harry Laforme. I mean, these extraordinary allies Donna Holbrook, these extraordinary allies, that I'm feeling optimistic because I really think that if we can come together, we will win. We will win, and we will save Canada, and we will save our communities.
Thank you, both of you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate both of you, and viewers, you just watch our conversation. During 2026, we'll have more debates, more panel discussions, more podcasts on those sensitive and delicate issues. Stay tuned with TAC TV.